Hello, dear listener, and welcome to Sitcom Showdown, episode 102. I'm one of your hosts. My name is Jeffers, and with me is Steve. Hello, Steve.
Hello. Hello, Jeff. Hello, listeners.
We're going to do something that we've never done before, Steve. And that is, we're going to cover an entire series in one single episode of Sitcom Showdown.
Sounds so impressive when you say it this way.
Yeah, it's technically true. We're gonna look at a show called We Are Men, and if the listener doesn't know about We Are Men, it got cancelled after only 2 episodes 10 years ago in 2013. So it appeared on CBS, 30th of September on CBS in 2013. The first 2 episodes rated so poorly that CBS cancelled the show on October 9th. So that it was around for a whole 10 days.
Wow.
It's not a ringing endorsement.
Was it a flat thing where both episodes both rated poorly, or was it the first one kind of average and then the second one just went...
That's a good question. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I didn't look into the ratings, I must confess.
Whichever way you cut it, must have been pretty bad.
Or we're going to find out, aren't we? So there we go. Right, so We Are Men, as it sounds, it's a sitcom with 4 male leading characters. And the premise is this. After youngish Carter Thomas is left at the altar by his bride, he moves into a short-term rental complex, it's all furnished, where he forms a friendship with 3 divorced older men who have been through what he's been through. And these 3 veteran divorcees, they take Carter under their wings with advice on marriage and divorce and scoring with chicks. Now, the creator of this, Steve, unless you want to comment on that summary, is that fair?
Yeah, I think Gil, who's one of the characters, we'll obviously talk about him later. He got caught out in adultery 18 months prior to Carter rocking up. So still, as we're going to see in the second episode, he's hoping to reconcile with his ex. So I'm not even sure if they divorced or not. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure there was going to be an episode later in the season that went into that.
Yeah.
But we ain't never going to see it.
Shame.
God, the creator of this show, Steve, was a dude called Rob Greenberg. Now, he wrote, directed, and executively produced it. And this surely would be a stain on his resume. But Rob's still rolling. It hasn't hurt him. Most recently, in 2023, he had a sitcom called Animal Control, which stars Joel McHale.
Oh, okay.
Yes, he of great ups and downs himself, Joel.
Yeah. Joel McHale's, he's from Community, right?
He is, yeah.
And he was in...
The failed transplant of the IT crowd. Yeah, okay. Absolutely. I love rubbing that in for poor old Joel.
We could have a good conversation about him sometime.
Yeah, totally. Well, maybe he should be in the actor spotlight one day.
All right.
Mr. Greenberg was also a co-producer on Frasier from 96 to 99, which is a 71-episode span. I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, he wouldn't have been the king producer. He would have been like a
Prince producer.
Yes, or an underling producer or something. So we've got a little clip here, Steve, which you didn't know I was going to show you, of Mr. Greenberg. Rob's talking about the show. And this is contemporary just as the show is launching.
Oh.
So you get this perspective of...
Like 5 seconds before disaster.
Yeah, pretty much. And I've pinched this from the YouTube channel called Happy Cool.
It's a single camera comedy about 4 guys in very loosely in the vein of Sex and the City, about their love lives and about their ex-wives and about their work life and about their daughters and about their parents. And it's a mishmash of 4 guys who all kind of, their old relationships crashed and burned, and now they're kind of pulling themselves out of the ashes and trying again.
So those characters are really specific in the show, but what was the inspiration behind them?
I was divorced years ago, and so I kind of was I had a little of each of these guys was in me, so I kind of separated them out and pulled them out and made 4 different characters. So a little bit of me exaggerated for comic effect.
And let's talk about the title a little bit. We Are Men, and I love saying it that way. We Are Men. What's the inspiration behind that one?
The title was a long and tricky process. I think it's about guys, and ideally guys who aren't cartoons of guys and aren't and overly sensitive and overly macho. They're kind of trying to explore it in a real comedic but real way.
So Rob was talking about the title there, Steve. What were your comments?
Well, the title's rubbish.
Yeah.
We Are Men.
They obviously sat in the room for weeks trying to figure out a decent... Well, okay, maybe an afternoon. What can we call this thing?
Well, the person doing the interview quizzed him about it, and he couldn't even really come up with a genius explanation for it.
All right, so at the end, when we're talking about reasons this might have been cancelled so swiftly, we can add name to the list.
We Are Men. That's not selling it to anyone, is it? He compares it to Sex in the City, Sex in the City catches your ear.
Yeah.
If nothing else.
It certainly does. Yeah, good point. I hadn't considered that title might be a factor. Anyway, We Are Men was panned by the critics. And Rotten Tomatoes currently has a rating of 4% for this program. I think that's the viewer rating, or is it the critic rating? I'm not entirely sure. Entertainment Weekly said the show was, quote, the male version of Sex and the City with more shirtless scenes and less wit.
Yeah, I can see it.
So you can imagine that, if a show from 10 years ago showing dudes being dudes was panned, then imagine if you released it now in 2023 when, let's face it, dude, masculinity is verboten. It's entertainment poison, really. And so this show would go down like a cup of cold sick, as it says in my notes. So I think we should look at it, which we are doing.
Yes.
Foregone conclusion. There were 9 remaining episodes that never aired. And with apologies to the dear listener, I think that even the 2 episodes that did air cannot be found on YouTube. I couldn't find them. So if you're actually looking to watch this show, you probably won't be able to, and I'll explain that later. But there were 9 remaining episodes, and they're doing that thing, and it's a bit try-hard, where putting We Are before everything.
Yes.
So We Are Dog Nappers is the second episode that we're going to talk about. Then the ones that never ever got broadcast were We Are One Night Stands, We Are Learning to Swim, We Are Divorced Dads, We Are Gentlemen, We Are Angry, We Are Carpe Pontiac, We Are Frank's Giving, We Are Stuart's Anniversary, and We Are For the Tots.
I imagine how convoluted it would get by the second or third season if it ever got that far.
Precisely. Let's talk about the cast. I was very pleased, Steve, to get a message from you saying the cast in this show.
Yeah, yes. I think I'd just seen Dave Foley pop up on the screen.
Yeah. And did you do a double take and go,
yeah, I was still full of enthusiasm when I sent you that message.
Yeah, because it's only 4 minutes into the first episode or something. You think, ooh, Dave's going to be like that. Nope. Anyway, the cast. Let's run through them really quickly and then in depth. So there's Cal Penn as Gil Bartis, Chris Smith as Carter Thomas, Jerry O'Connell as Stuart Strickland. I'm not sure his name is Strickland because they changed his name, but anyway. Tony Shalhoub as Frank Russo and Rebecca Breeds as Abby Russo. But we're going to go through these people one by one, Steve.
Did you say Rebecca Breeds?
Breeds. And go, does she? Yes. And thanks for the tip, as Frank Skinner would say. Was I in the ballpark there, Steve? Oh, thank you. Chris Smith, which is about as vanilla a name as one can possibly get, played Carter Thomas. Now, he's the young man at the centre of this show, and he got left at the altar, as we're about to find out. So an early role for Chris was appearing in an episode of 30 Rock, 4 years before this show aired in 2009. He appeared in 30 Rock. Anyway, he was also in an episode of The Office in 2011. Okay. But around that time, he'd done 12 episodes of a web series comedy called Main Street, which is Mayne. That went for 5 years, dude. It also had Aubrey Plaza in it, John Mulaney in it, and a bunch of other people who went on to become big names. So it can't have been too bad. And Chris seemed to have headlined a series called The Couch in 2013, but I couldn't find much info on it. And in 2021, so he must have gone on to do more work, he did 6 eps of a sitcom called The Moodies, which was another Rob Greenberg project. I believe it might be based on an Australian comedy, A Moody's Christmas. So it's another transplant.
Not familiar with that.
No, nor am I. In any case, I think Chris was on the verge of the big time, but We Are Men might have set him back. So this reminds me of the last episode, I think, when we covered Beans of Boston,
Yes.
the Are You Being Served remake. And of course, the lady who was the central character in that, the young actress, of course, if it had gone on to do well, that would have launched her whole career. But obviously it set her back a few years before she became the main character in the sitcom version of Private Benjamin. And that's what's happened to poor old Chris. It could have been huge for him, his big break. But
It set him back a decade.
yeah, bloody hell. Cal Penn, however, Steve, blimey, yes, he plays Gil
Hang on,
Bartas.
Not Cow Pen.
No, not Cow Penn.
Cal.
Cal. Yeah, like Kal-El.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Nice little Superman reference there. Anyway, as you mentioned, Steve, his wife broke up with him after catching him having what he calls the world's worst affair. And even after a year, Gil is still trying to win her back. But Cal Penn, the actor, he's very well known. He was in Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle, of course, and that was... It's hard to believe, but that's nearly 20 years ago now, so that was 2004. Anyway, in the late 90s, more importantly, Steve, he had bit parts in Spin City, which we have to cover Spin City at some point. How have we not covered Spin City?
That's Michael J. Fox, right?
Yeah, it was good. Well, okay, my memory of it is that it was good. But then at the
Have to put
time,
that
I
to the
thought
test.
Just Shoot Me was good. So I can't be trusted. Sorry, back to Cal Penn. Anyway, he was also, he appeared a bit in Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Sabrina the Teenage Witch, which is a show I've always wanted to bring to Sitcom Showdown. But ever since you panned Basil Brush, I've thought, lay off the kids' shows, Jeffrey. Where were we? He did a bunch of party time movies. Are you familiar with the Van Wilder movies at all, Steve?
Nah, not really, no.
Okay, so this was a big one for Ryan Reynolds. He was Van Wilder, and Cal Penn played a, sort of role in that was so popular that he went on to be the star of another Van Wilder sequel called Van Wilder, The Rise of Taj. Anyway, Cal Penn also did 10 episodes of How I Met Your Mother. So what I'm trying to say here, Steve... Oh, sorry, yes?
Well, I've seen him in, I think he was in Designated Survivor.
Right. Yeah, he's got plenty of profile, this dude. He's not an unknown. He's done plenty of TV and movies and animated voice work, so good on him. Next up is Tony Shalhoub, who played Frank Russo. And the character of Frank is described as a 4-time divorcee who still fancies himself to be a ladies' man. Now, we're going to hear a clip later of Tony talking about Frank. But yes, you're familiar with him, are you not, Steve?
Well, I certainly knew his name, but that was from Men in Black, and I don't think he played a big character in that, so I'd say he's well known, but...
I was under the impression you'd watched Monk before.
No.
No, okay, I was dead wrong about that, fair enough. So in that case, I'll illuminate you. Monk was an incredibly successful TV show. He led it for 124 episodes from 2002 to 2009, won all sorts of awards. Before that, he also appeared in The X-Files and Frasier and Ally McBeal and Spy Kids and Cars, and he's just very well known.
Yep.
For the last 6 years, he's been in all 43 episodes of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which is an hour-long comedy drama. It's sort of set in the 1950s. Yes, but let's go to this little clip, similar to the last one from the Happy Cool channel, of Tony being interviewed at the launch of the series about his character Frank.
All right, sounds awesome.
Let's talk about Frank.
Okay, well, Frank is 4 times divorced. He's a successful guy, businessman, clothing manufacturer guy. One of the things that really drew me to it was not only is the character way different from Monk, but he gets to dress really differently than Monk. Monk was always buttoned up, very kind of rigid, stiff. And this guy wears cool, loose, flowy things. And he's a guy who just loves life and has a huge appetite for it. And even though his life is kind of 4 failed marriages, lots of wreckage behind him, he's just very positive. And he's sort of never gives up. I like the whole runner that they've got going about Carter's character is Chris's character, Carter, is in hot pursuit of my daughter, played by Rebecca. And even though my character is dating women his daughter's age around there, he's very protective of her. doesn't want any involvement with these guys.
It's not a double standard, right?
Exactly.
I think Tony did a much better job of selling it than the producer dude.
Yeah. And I don't know, if it's being petty to point out, though, that when he's answering questions about his character, he's talking about the clothes. If that's the most you can talk about with your character,
it was a bit strange that was the first thing he went to. The clothes are much different than this other character that I'm known for.
Yeah, I don't know what that says, but it can't be good. Let's move on to Australian actress Rebecca Breeds, playing Frank's daughter, Abby Russo. Now, Abby seems to be kind of visiting her dad in town, and then by various contrived methods, she ends up having to stay there because she locks herself out of somewhere, and then she has to use the laundry there, and blah, blah, blah. But the point is that they want her hanging around. They didn't quite find a good reason for her to hang around, and I don't know.
And the contrived things include her having to whip all her clothes off down to her bikini while she's in the laundry.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Which will make sense when we hear what show she came from. So, she has done all right for herself, though.
Home and Away or something.
Yeah, yes. Well done, Steve. Well predicted.
Sorry.
She's gone on to very good multi-episode stints in shows. She headlined this show called Clarice, 13 episodes, and that shows exactly what you think it might be, Steve. She played young Clarice from Silence of the Lambs. No, sorry, not young Clarice, Starling, FBI agent. This is a year after the events of Silence of the Lambs. That's what the show covers. Yeah. Not a bad role to,
Well, there'd be some drama to that, wouldn't there?
Oh,
Surely.
yeah. Absolutely. At the same time, she did 10 episodes of a show called Legacies. Now, this is a vampire-y, werewolfy fantasy show for the teens.
Okay.
So that's not bad
She's
either.
all over the genre shop.
She's killing it, dude. But most importantly, Steve, as you predicted, she did do a whopping 389 episodes of Home and Away.
Oh,
and that was in a 5-year stint, I guess, 2008 to 2012, as a character called Ruby Buckton. So, I mean, on Home and Away, right, it's set on the beach, and so you do have to get around in a bikini quite a bit. You can't be shy about that sort of stuff. And this show being set in what I assume is California, obviously, it's cool for that. So
it must be a bit of a transition to a bit nerve-wracking to be very well known in Australia. Like, it must be tempting, right, to just stay a star in Australia in
Big fish
something
in a
like
small
Home and Away.
Mm.
And then, weighing that up against making the move to LA and potentially just appearing in a few things and then fading away or something.
Yeah. But then she did star in things. So
yes. Well, it panned out for her.
Yeah, totes. It would be amazing to look at the alumni of Neighbours and Home and Away.
Mm.
There'd be some massive names in there.
Well, Isla, what's her name?
Yeah,
she was
Fisher.
from Home and Away.
Yep, absolutely. And
She's
then
done some stuff.
I assume Guy Pearce is obviously awesome actor, and I assume your Hemsworths
Kylie
went
Minogue.
through. Yeah, Kyle's. Yeah, all them lot.
Yep.
Let's move on to Jerry O'Connell, who has possibly done more than all these actors combined, Steve, except for 389 episodes of Home and Away. He plays a character called Dr. Stuart Webber, not Stuart Strickland, as I said before. So someone's got it wrong on one of the websites I ripped off. In this show, Dr. Stuart Webber, he's a very high-earning doctor, but he is a party animal. He's been married and divorced twice. His first wife was this hotshot lawyer, which didn't help him very well when they got divorced because she just crucified him.
Yep.
And then he got married a second time, and then when she left him, she hired his ex-wife to be the divorce lawyer, which is just brilliant, I think. And
so there's no conflict of interest there?
I don't know. She's taken him.
She's certainly been motivated.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. But Dr. Stu, he's like, this is what they're talking about with the lots of shirtless scenes. It's all Jerry O'Connell parading his six-pack around. So he's ripped. He's got this six-pack and he's this impulsive party dude. And it's how I'd like to imagine Jerry O'Connell is in real life. I'm sure he wouldn't like people to think that. But I want to. Because as a kiddie, I loved the movie Joe's Apartment, which was great. Him and a bunch of cockroaches, and the cockroaches are helping him through his troubled times. And yeah, if you've not seen it.
No, I haven't.
Highly recommend it. It was an MTV movie in the early days of MTV movies.
Okay.
So I guess when they couldn't get Paulie Shaw to do it. They got Jerry O'Connell to do it.
See, I know him as Kush from Jerry Maguire.
Oh, really? I'd completely forgotten about that.
It's a Kush. He's the top pick for the draft that's coming up. Jerry Maguire's a sports agent, so he's trying to represent this dude and get him the best possible deal by selling his talents to whatever sports team. But it doesn't pan out, dude.
No.
I said that Stuart looks like Shaggy in one of these flashbacks. Shaggy from Scooby-Doo.
He does too.
In the wedding scene.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny.
Because he was marrying that hippie chick.
Yep.
Wife number 2. Oh, we got a bit distracted there, but as a kiddie, he was Vern in the movie Stand By Me. Recently, though, he was Commander Jack in Star Trek Lower Decks for 30 episodes. Now, that might sound impressive, but Lower Decks is a crappy animated
one
show that is pretty low rent, and goodness knows how the Star Trek people put this out, but whatever. Sitcom-wise, though, for him, amazingly, it's pretty slim pickings. He's been a leading man in all these shows, all these movies, mainly 1 hour format crossovers of, crime comedy dramas or drama comedy crime shows or whatever the hell. But not a lot of sitcoms. Anyway, he's always been in steady work, Jerry O'Connell. But we know him best for Sliders, I would say. Well, I do, not Jerry Maguire. But And then my last thing written here, which we've already covered, Steve, is Dave Nelson. We're getting 2 lines, one of which is asking where his boiled egg is. But as long as he got paid tons of cash for that so that he could hand it over to his ex-wife, then that's cool.
That's right. He needs to work.
Yeah.
But you said Dave Nelson.
Well,
this is what happens when they name the character as same as the actor.
It can't all be like the Goodies where Bill Oddie's character is called Bill Oddie and Graham Garden's character is called Graham. It makes life so much easier.
If only they'd gone the extra mile.
Yeah, that's right. This is the usual question we ask on Sitcom Showdown, Steve, is had you ever seen this before? To which we know the answer.
It was gone in the blink of an eye, dude.
Yeah.
No, I haven't seen it.
All right, my explanation is back in 2013, I managed to nab these in real time as they were being shown. And then week 3 comes around. I thought I'll settle in and watch a little bit of We Are Men. And nada. So there was bugger all. And that had been long forgotten about until I recently saw them on a hard drive.
Yep.
And I went, ooh, that's that show that disappeared. And then I looked into it, and it was 10 years ago. So what better time to dig it out and have a sneaky peek? Yes.
So you had watched these 2 episodes back in the day?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, right.
And I didn't think it was the greatest thing since sliced bread, but I wasn't not enjoying it. If too negative, a double negative there with a...
Yep.
Yeah. Didn't matter because as we'll find out at the end of this podcast, Steve, there was some... it was up against some pretty stiff competition. So,
well, as we know, the best of sitcoms have started off pretty terribly, so...
No, true.
You always give the first few episodes a bit of a pass.
Yeah.
In the hopes that there'll be some improvement.
We'll find out. Okay, so let's have a little clip with the theme, and then we'll come back and talk about episode 1 and episode 2, all the episodes there were, in a more condensed format than we usually do.
I will survive as long as I know how to love. I know I'll be alive. Hey.
This is a blessing. You are a free man now. You can finally live. We are taking you under our wing.
We did the same thing for Gil. I was here before you. But you didn't use your time well.
Carter, look around you. You're living in paradise. We got a killer gym. We got indoor parking, complimentary Sunday brunch, and we are 4 exits from Hollywood. Actresses come through here all the time. Enter Frank, stage left.
And Stewart, stage right.
Yeah, just to be clear, different actresses, different stages, all very kosher.
Then I stupidly went on her Facebook page, and there were all these pictures of her with that guy.
Why? Why would you do that? So you can feel bad about yourself?
You go on your wife's Facebook page all the time.
And I feel bad about myself.
I just have too much time on my hands. I don't even have a job anymore. I was working for her dad.
He fired you? This is a family of animals.
It would have been awkward anyway. Besides, marketing industrial paint is even more boring than it sounds.
So wait, what are you gonna do?
I have no idea.
I will survive as long as I know how to love. I know I'll be alive. Hey.
Episode 1. It opens with a cool scene that has ended many a romantic comedy. That's where we normally see a scene like this. Now, this guy, he's a young, attractive guy, and he's running for his life, and he's sprinting along the streets and through a park and over a road. He's nearly getting hit by cars, and you hear this narration, and they've done a close-up on this actor's face as you hear this narration, and it says, there are defining moments in life that change everything. And, he's huffing and puffing, and he's still running, and he runs up the stairs of this church, and he bursts through the church doors. Everyone in the church, they all turn around and go, what's going on here? Because, clearly the bride and groom are about to say their I do's. He yells out, Sarah, don't marry him. I love you. I'll always love you. And we cut to the bride, and she sort of looks surprised and panicked. But she's overcome by this amazing gesture, and she just says, oh, sorry, and runs off with this guy, and they go off together. And it's, like I said, at the end of a romantic comedy, this would be the fist in the air moment, and you're going, yes, this is the greatest thing ever. But, of course, this show is not about that dude. Yes, this show focuses on the guy left behind, and it was Carter's narration, but they did it over the face of the guy who actually stole his bride, or sort of got her back.
It's a nice bit of misdirection. Yeah.
I thought, as beginnings go, it's fairly good, and I've seen a lot worse.
Solid first 30 seconds.
Yeah. But within a few minutes, Steve, as the guy we were just talking about, Carter, got left at the R, he keeps his narration going, and it's quite long, and we see he's had to move back in with his parents, including Dave Foley Nelson.
Yep.
And the boiled egg situation. And he obviously didn't stay at home for very long, because next thing you know, we see him moving into this short-term furnished accommodation.
Yep.
And then we get this big exposition-y info dump about each of the 3 characters that Carter meets, and that introduces us to Gil and Frank and Dr. Stu. So lots of voiceover there. Anyway, then they're all chatting in the apartment complex's hot tub and drinking beers. Then they're chatting in a restaurant and having cocktails all of a sudden.
Yep.
This series moves pretty fast. But Carter tells the older guys that he's also lost his job. Why did he lose his job, Steve?
Well, because he was employed by his now ex's father.
Selling paint?
Industrial paint.
Oh, really? So not even fashionable interior decorator?
Not really,
paint.
No.
Oh.
But, industrial paint's never going to go you're never going to go hungry.
No, that's true.
If you sell industrial paint.
Yeah, unless you split up with the boss's daughter.
Oh, yeah, yes.
True.
Of course.
Right, and so now he's got no job, and his fiance's left him at the altar. Not good. So Stuart and Gil and Frank, they're all trying to get him to find his dream job. So they go, what do you want to do? And they narrow it down that he does want to coach a basketball team, because he played 4 years of Division II hoops at college. Anyway, he just wants to coach a college team or a high school team or something, and they all try to hatch a plan to get him laid as well, which goes badly.
He wants to be Coach Carter.
Yeah. Oh, Steve.
Have you ever watched that movie?
No. I know it, though.
Carry on.
Yeah. Right, the next night, Steve, they're all at a party, and Frank's daughter, Abby, is there, and she's visiting her dad. So he introduces Abby to the guys, and, she's obviously met Stu and Gil before. She can't remember who the hell they are. And he mocks them by saying they are forgettable. Anyway, we get our first decent joke when Frank says, this is Carter. His bride just dumped him at the altar. And then Carter gets quite angry at this, because no one wants to be introduced that way. But they remind him he's going to get sympathy dates because of this. And Abby goes, it's true. Girls love a fixer-upper.
Yeah, I've got that written down.
Yeah. Ah, good. So that must mean if both of us thought it was a good gag, it must be a good gag. Oh. Thank you, Steve. Yeah, so really when you think
about it...
I wrote it down. Yeah, oh, good. Now, it's not that bad. Oh, did you have it as an example of a terrible joke? Mediocre?
I don't know.
Middling?
It was all right.
Okay.
Middle of the road.
Anyway, Steve, in a nice coincidence, Abby was in town to see the Lakers game. And who do we know that likes basketball?
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, she likes basketball. Isn't that great? And so she's chatting away to Carter for a good 20 seconds about basketball. And off she walks after that chit-chat. Anyway, because Frank's the worst, and because he's always hitting on young ladies, he knows exactly what Stuart and Gil and Carter are thinking about how attractive his daughter is. And so he assumes that the other guys think that way too. And he looks at each of them in turn and he goes, no, no. And then he relents, which I like, and he looks at young Carter and he goes, well, maybe. And then a pause and he goes, no.
Nah.
So
Not
I
gonna
think, well done, Tony. Nice bit of acting there. I thought that was good.
Yeah, he does well.
At this point, they all go for burgers and they decide to break into a Catholic school to play hoops in the gym. And then after they break into this Catholic school, then they go back to the bar to pick up chicks. Now, there's a scene in between there where they get busted by the nun, and to get out of trouble, they have to make a donation to the Catholic school and all this, but it wasn't worth explaining, even though I just did. When Carter decides not to sleep with any of these nice ladies that Frank and Stuart have tried to set him up with in the bar while they're having the drinks after having broken into the Catholic school, we get this joke where Stuart says, listen, dude, we don't need another Gil. We've already got a Gil. I.e., it's a guy that still cares about his ex and is trying to do everything he can to get back with her.
Right.
So
they want him to be
another party boy.
Yeah, footloose and fancy free.
Yeah, exactly. So they don't want anyone hung up over his ex and who can't move on. And we need a clip.
I miss Sarah.
We've already got a Gil. We don't need another Gil.
Look, this is hard for me, okay? I lost everything. Sarah and I, we just bought a house. We were gonna have kids. I had a life, and now I'm living in temporary housing in Tarzana.
You know what I think? You have had one girlfriend, one job you hate, never lived on your own. I wouldn't be so quick to call that a life.
No, it's life, all right. Sarah's life.
Look, I don't want to talk about this, all right? Our situations are different.
Hang on, what's that supposed to mean?
Nothing. I've just got to try and figure this whole thing out. I don't want to end up here, 5 years from now, desperate and sad.
So we're desperate and sad?
That's not what I meant.
What did you meant?
Okay, do you really want to do this? Come on, Stuart. You're so angry at your ex-wives, you can't move on. And Gil.
You don't have to go down the line.
Okay, then I won't say that you're obviously holding on to something that is not there anymore.
Thank you.
And Frank.
Hit me.
Do you honestly think that you're going to have a meaningful relationship with some random 25-year-old that you meet at a Jamba Juice?
Right, so this goes badly. Carter tells them off. They're telling him what his situation should be, and then he turns the tables and said, no, listen, your problem is this, and you, Frank, your problem is this, and Gil, your problem is this. And they don't like that very much. Well, no one does like hearing the truth, and they're about to kick him out of the group, but he goes, I'll save you the trouble, and he walks away, and there's a bit of a bust-up here. But almost straight away, we cut to a scene set a little bit later where Carter's playing ball on his own. Gil walks up for a chat, right, and he wants to break the ice with Carter, and he, opens up with some basketball chat, trying to smooth things over with the newbie, because Gil knows what it's like. He wants to get back together with his wife, and so he can sympathise with Carter. Anyway, Gil calls for the ball, which Carter passes to him, and Gil, who's clearly hopeless, he just gets this ball in the face.
Yeah, gets cracked right in the nose.
Yeah, I really like this scene, and I know we just had a clip, but let's have another clip.
Oh my God, are you okay?
That was my bad. I don't know why I called for it.
Yeah.
You really want to get back with Sarah, right? I know that look.
I do, yeah, even after everything.
When I screwed up my marriage, which I regret every waking minute, I thought the best thing to do would be to sort of give my wife a lot of space, Wait for her to forgive me and see... Were you going to tell me my nose is bleeding?
I wanted to hear what you had to say. Sorry.
The thing is, man, I waited too long. Now I can only see her when I pick up my daughter. If you love Sarah, don't just sit around doing nothing. Some guy made some big grand gesture. Guess what? It's your turn.
Yeah.
Go down there and get her.
I will. Thank you. Can I get you an ice pack or something?
Oh, no, I'm just gonna go jump in the pool.
Okay.
So I like that pause where Gil, or Cal, the actor, he does this scene really well, but it's just funny when Carter says, well, I didn't mention it because I wanted to hear what you had to say. Like, it's this really low-key joke, but it's the expressions, I feel, that make it, which unfortunately the listener can't see, but, trust me, it was all right. Carter leaps into action and he rushes around to Sarah's place to confront the dude who stole her back, right? Because Gil has inspired him to go get his woman back. Sarah and this other guy had broken up, and so he's getting ready to confront someone who isn't even there anymore. She was so ashamed and embarrassed at calling off the wedding, she didn't have the courage to call Carter and try and patch things up. So it's all very emotional, and they have a big snog. And I'll just say a word about Sarah, Steve, who's played by Fiona Gubelman. In this scene, she's 100% dead ringer for Penny from Big Bang Theory.
Mm.
It looks just like her. Not in the other scenes in this first episode, but just in that particular scene. It was amazing. And she is that person I was referring to earlier, classic example of someone who has been in one episode of about 30 sitcoms.
Oh, right.
And has never had a
breakout role.
Yeah, exactly. So we cut back to the apartments where they show us each of the guys. Gil's moving on, right? So he's getting some character development there because his daughter's trying to set him up with another woman, and he was launching into his usual, no, because I'm about to get back with your mother. And then he realizes what he's saying. And because Carter had called him out on that delusional bull crap when they had their bust up.
Yep.
Yeah, so there's character development there, which is amazing. And then, of course, we see Stuart. He's yelling on the phone to his lawyer about something petty in his second divorce settlement. But then he relents and he says, let her have it. So we can see Stuart's changing too. And Frank, he's getting it on with a 26-year-old Asian chick, which is exactly his type. He's learned nothing. I think that's his role in this show, to learn bugger all. So the next day, as we draw to a close, Carter brings Sarah to the apartment complex because he's patched things up with the lady who left him at the altar.
Before we get to this,
yes,
should we mention that Stuart has gotten Carter a coaching job? I think that happens before this scene that you're about to mention, doesn't it?
This is way earlier in the episode. Yeah, he says, one of my patients is a dude who's in charge of ball at some college. And
yep. So I think sometime shortly before the scene we're about to move to, Stuart announces that he's got him his dream job, essentially.
Yeah.
It's going to be important. So
cool.
I just thought I'd mention it.
I sort of cut out of that B plot because I was trying to motor through this thing.
Yep. All right, continue motoring.
No, thank you. So Carter's brought Sarah around to the apartment complex because he's just there to collect all his stuff and get the hell out and get back to his happy life that if he was honest, Steve, he wasn't all that happy with. And he says goodbye to the guys and then introduces them to Sarah at the same time. Now, Sarah and Carter inform the dudes that they're getting married next Saturday. And in fact, Carter invites them along. And Sarah, for a split second, she looks shocked, but she recovers very well and retains face and says, I'd love that. And I'm going to talk to Mum and see if there's room for more guests, which is clearly a delaying tactic and introducing a nice little safety barrier there.
Yep.
And a pathway out. And as it turns out, a few days later, the guy...
he just takes that on the chin too.
Pretty much. But I think he believed it.
But,
because he's so happy.
Shouldn't he speak up and say, well, let's make it happen?
Yeah. What he believes it's going to happen. Yeah. Do you think he didn't believe her? He's standing next to her looking at the guys, so he couldn't see that expression on her face when she was sort of... Anyway.
Well, I guess we'll talk more about his character later on. I've got more to say.
Good. I'm glad you got more to say. That'll be a blessed relief for the listener. Not only do we discover, Steve, that Sarah's mum didn't find any room for the three lads at the wedding, and they didn't get to go. So they're not invited. But the Carter also didn't even bother rocking up to the basketball dream job you told us about. And now he's back working for Sarah's dad, selling paint.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we cut to a bit ahead, to the church where Carter and Sarah again are getting ready to say their I do's. And this time the doors fly open and the boys all come crashing through the doors screaming, "Don't do it."
And then what happens?
Well, what happens, Steve, is there's a great gag where the vicar turns to Sarah and says, "How many ex-boyfriends have you got?" Which I thought was quite nifty. And then followed by Frank saying, no, not her, we're here for him, which is also funny too.
Mm-hmm.
They give this off-the-cuff speech telling Carter, make sure this is what you want. And of course the boys, including Carter, all go running out of the church. And now for some reason Stu has his shirt off again, even though he didn't in the church. So, okay. And that's basically it. But what I thought, it was a cool mirroring of at the end and the beginning, you've got that dramatic church scene. So,
that is good.
Steve,
it's in Jerry O'Connell's contract that he's got to have his shirt off for 50% of every episode or something.
Yeah. I think they wanted him to do it. I don't know how keen he was to do it, but, what the hell?
Yeah.
If I was ripped, I'd do it. Right. Episode 1, Steve.
You'd be putting it in your contract.
Yeah. I don't think we've ever done 2 episodes of a sitcom in one show before. So this is new territory for us.
Making good time, though.
But yeah, so rather than talk about episode 1 at the end, what are your thoughts on episode 1?
I thought it showed promise, and I do like the way a lot of the information and relationships and characters and everything like that gets carried through into episode 2. So it does a good job of setting all sorts of things up for the future. So yeah, I thought it was, it didn't set the world on fire, but it wasn't terrible. It wasn't terrible.
Yeah, we've seen a hell of a lot worse in our time covering sitcoms.
Mm-hmm.
Shall I just get into episode 2?
Yeah, well, did you have any summary thoughts on episode 1?
No.
Oh, okay.
Handy, eh?
Yeah.
Episode 2. The elevator pitch from IMDb, which I've pinched for episode 2, is Gil takes his daughter on a camping trip. By the way, this is a subplot I'm not even going to bother talking about. Stuart and his wife are ready to settle their divorce, but she wants the family dog. And the boys decide to kidnap the dog. And thirdly, Carter tries to get friendlier with Frank's daughter. Now, the only thing that IMDb left out, Steve-O, is that it's Tiki Night at the complex, and this is Frank's favourite night of the year because it's party time, and putting alcohol in coconuts and scoffing it right down, and he looks forward to getting completely hammered at this time of year and doing wild stuff.
I'm not ashamed to admit I had to look up what Tiki Night was.
Yeah. Oh, can you explain
You've been
that?
to Hawaii, so you probably
know. Yes, I have, but no, I don't.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, it's just a Hawaiian-themed party night, really, isn't it?
Cool.
Some nice,
Pig
delicious...
on a spit.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking of.
And we do see that. Yeah, but I'm not going to bring it up in this summary because it's a minor detail. So the boys are on a hike, right? It opens with them on a hike, and it's the present day, and there's chats going on. So, Gil might be walking side by side with Frank, and they're having a little chat, and Stuart's walking side by side with Chris, and they're having a little chat, whatever. We're catching up on everything they've been doing since the last episode. Most notably, that young Carter bumped into Abby, who is Frank's daughter, Australian actress Rebecca Braids, and he caught up with her, as you said earlier, Steve, in the laundry room where she's washing everything she owns, except for the bikini she's got on. So let's have a clip.
Hey, Abby.
Hey, Carter.
I believe the sign says residents only, but I'll be cool.
Well, my dad gave me a key. My building doesn't have a laundry. Or a pool.
Wow. Where do you keep your quarters?
See, I knew I forgot something.
Please, let me treat you to a load. Or maybe there's a less icky way of saying that.
Yeah. Maybe there is.
As you heard, Frank does hate people hitting on his daughter, which makes him a bit of a hypocrite, as we know. But anyway, poor old Carter, he's going to have to play his cards very carefully here. But I did like the flirty banter, though, Steve. It was a bit saucy. I thought it was pretty good. Where do you keep your quarters?
Yeah, that was a good one.
And she took that with good grace, I think. The other thing is in these flashbacks that occur, and then we cut back to them walking along the hiking trail, and then another flashback, blah, blah, blah. Now, a day or so before, we saw that Dr. Stu is just this close to finalising his divorce and signing the papers. And his lawyer goes, yep, we're all good to go. And as he's about to do it, he goes, just one last thing. She wants the dog.
Peaches.
Peaches. Peaches, the wonder dog. He's very unhappy about this, Stu, but he does agree just to keep, he finally wants to bring this battle to a close. Anyway, as they're hiking along the trail, they see Stu's dog on the hiking trail, and I was thinking that is a hell of a coincidence, but it turns out Peaches is being walked by a dog walker. Now, this isn't expected because, of course, it's revealed that Stuart's ex doesn't actually care for the dog all that much. She doesn't walk it. She's hired this dog walker to do it. Dog walker called Catherine, by the way.
Yes.
And also, Stuart's ex doesn't prepare the special meals that the doggy has to have because it's special needs meals, all that stuff. So we can predict here, plot-wise, that Dr. Stu is going to go back into battle for his dog. That's not quite what happens, though. But it does seem his ex is just wanting to get one over on him, because she knows he loves the doggy. Now, there's a good gag, Steve, here, in my humble opinion, where Stuart turns around because the dog walker's gone off with Peaches, and he turns around and he calls after her, I love you, girl. the
Not
dog
you,
walker,
Catherine.
Catherine, turns around and Stu has to say, well, not you, Catherine, but you do seem nice.
Yeah.
And she says, oh, thank you.
It was a very pleasant conversation.
And as I've taken great pains to write here, Steve, so like it's not very hilarious in the retelling by me, but the reason I like it is because I think a lesser show would have taken this kind of standard awkwardness gag and they would have taken the low-hanging fruit of making like a snarky or predictably mean insult humour thing. You know what I mean? But Stuart is pleasant to her, even though she's just told him off for something.
Yep.
And she accepts it with good grace, and you get the awkwardness joke, but it's gently funny. And they didn't have to resort to people slagging each other off that we see in so many other shows, and they think it's funny, but...
Good point. Good point.
Thank you. Apologies for all the rustling of papers, by the way, dear listener. I know it's annoying. We're going to jump ahead to the Great Break-In, Steve, which does add some nice tension to this show and some stakes and risk and lots of potential for jokes because you got three middle-aged men and a young fit dude all trying to break into this house. To get it done, though, Steve, they have to enlist the help of the kid next door to Stuart's ex-house. And his name is Jacob. Let's have a clip.
There's got to be an easier way to break into your house.
Oh, this isn't my house. My house is next door. What? Hey, Jacob, it's go time.
Come on, Jacob, you can do it. Let's go.
I don't fit anymore.
It's all in your head. Just remain positive, breathe, and push.
Come on. All right, Jacob, great job. Here's $10.
Keep your money. I made 12 grand caddying last summer.
Wait, how much? Is that after taxes?
Taxes?
Guys, focus. We gotta get in and out. Peaches, come here, girl.
Damn, Stu, nice digs.
Paging Dr. Money.
Your rage makes total sense now.
Yeah, well, when I met her, she lived in a yurt. It was on Don Henley's ranch, but still.
Oh boy, I have to go to the bathroom.
Now?
Yeah, my stomach's not built for crime.
All right, we'll make it quick.
Oh, it'll be quick.
That's another nice bit of misdirection.
Yep, I thought it was very good.
When we discover that it's not his house they're climbing.
Quite. So the boy, Jacob, he tells our guys that the dog isn't there because Peaches is out with a dog walker, but should be back in around 20 minutes usually. They haven't got much time to come up with a plan. And I guess the plan is dog walker comes back, returns the dog, they pinch the dog. Pretty easy. How much time do you need?
Yep.
I don't know. And I guess they just start walking around Stuart's home, checking it all out. And they're...
Oh, before we do that, we missed one of the... Well, what I think is one of the best gags in the whole show.
Cool.
Which is where Jacob, the neighbour, the little kitty, he's struggling to get through the... Obviously, he's been through the... What do you call it? The doggy door?
The cat flap, the doggy door.
The doggy door in order to
past.
break into this house in the past. But that was 12 months ago or something like that, and he's put on some height and girth and whatnot in the meantime. So he's kind of struggling to get through this doggy door, and Stu's telling him, push, and he's basically giving him the kind of direction that he would to one of his lady clients, because he's a gynecologist, so...
Oh, Steve, very insightful.
If she was in labour, he'd be saying exactly the same thing.
That's brilliant. And then, to give him that little helping hand through the door, he gives what HG would describe as a boot up the date.
Yeah.
So that was good.
Yeah.
So Frank's walking around, right, and he goes, "Ooh, wine rack." And because, Stuart's in a bit of a panic and he's running hither and thither trying to just make sure they don't get caught. Frank doesn't care, So he walks up to the wine rack and he's pulling stuff out. Now, I'm going to come back to this in a sec.
That's after he's taken a stinky dump.
Yeah, no, that's Gil.
Oh, Gil
Yeah,
takes it.
because Gil, as we heard in the clip, crime doesn't agree with his stomach, poor old Gil.
Fair enough.
So, yeah, that's leaving some trace evidence right there. In the air particles. So what's happening here is Carter is starting to watch Stuart's wedding DVD, which then turns into a honeymoon DVD. Frank's grabbed this expensive wine from the rack, as I said. He's looking up what it's worth on his phone, anywhere between $600 and $1,200. And it's starting, Steve, in my opinion, to stray into the territory of Manny and Bernard house sitting in Black Books.
Yes, yes.
And we've got a clip.
Priceless bottle of wine.
And there's some books on wine upstairs as well, which is good, because sometimes it's jolly to know what one's drinking. Ah, Bernard, Manny will fill you in. I must just go and say goodbye to the dogs.
Right, what's the thing?
Very simple.
Yes.
Very simple, very simple.
Okay, so what is it? What?
We can only drink these 10 bottles here.
Just these?
Yeah. These, completely out of bounds. Can't even touch these.
Just these ones then?
These are the only ones. Just these ones.
Okay, got it. Thank God you were here, though, because I would have thought it was the other way around.
I do think it's a mistake to play that clip because any sane person might think, instead of covering We Are Men, why aren't you doing Black Books instead?
Why tell us more? Thinking similar things myself. Are we seriously trying to compare those two episodes?
Yeah, well, yes. Well, because, Steve, it gives us an opportunity to tell people that we've already covered it twice in Sitcom Showdown in episodes 15 and 91. So go back and listen to those. Oh, shameless. Yes, anyway, back to We Are Men. The break-in action, though. Frank and Carter and Gil, they're all watching the wedding DVD now because it's getting pretty hardcore. Frank's trying to open the wine. Meanwhile, Stuart's phone rings and a very rich client of his is about to give birth, or as he describes it, she's got an arm hanging out of her or something like that. He's got to get to the hospital now, and so he has to then leave the other three there to continue the dog napping operation while he leaves. Yeah, the stakes are being ramped up here, Steve. At the very same time Stuart's leaving, Jacob, the lookout kid, announces that the dog walker's coming back. So as one goes out the door, the other one's coming in the door with the dog, and the boys have to hide. Now, thankfully, the dog walker leaves very quickly, and they're all set. All they got to do is grab Peaches and get out of Dodge, But how can I describe this? Okay, so basically, Peaches is a great guard dog who doesn't know these guys, and she gets vicious. And the theory is that it's because Gil tried to grab her, and he's going, man, that's a racist dog. And they're going, are you insane, dude? But as we find out later, Peaches doesn't like people who aren't white people.
Well, here's my thing, right?
Okay.
We saw Peaches on the trail.
Yep.
She went past Gil.
Yep.
Nothing.
Yeah. Plot hole.
Happy dog. They should have had the dog growl at him or something like that on the trail.
And set it up earlier. Anyway, right, so Gil escapes, right, because meanwhile his daughter has rung up. Now his daughter, and I didn't want to do this other subplot, but let's do this, Steve. So he was going to go camping with his daughter and it was going to be brilliant. She cancelled on him at the last minute saying, oh, the most popular girl in school's having a slumber party and I've been invited. And when you're 13, this sort of stuff's important. So he got ditched for this slumber party. But his daughter's not having a good time. She's phoned him in the middle of this dog napping operation and said, Dad, come and get me. I'm not having a very good time. So he goes, I'm out of here. And he eventually gets past the dog after getting mauled gently. Peaches, the racist dog. So that leaves Frank and Carter to get this dog out of there. And there's a nice little bit of business where Abby, the ex-wife of Dr. Stu, comes home, but she's got her headphones in.
Yep.
And so they're able to sneak out. And so they sneak out and they go, oh, shit, we've forgotten the dog. So then they have to turn around, come back in, grab Peaches,
like that bit.
The dog. Yeah, it's a nice bit of stuff, and it's all done.
The door closes and she goes, huh?
It's all dialogue free. It's just a nice little bit of visual humour. We're very close to the end here because they're going back to Tiki Night, of course, and everything's gone the boys' way, but there's still a few minutes left. So that means something's got to go wrong, Steve. Carter is...
So it does.
Yeah, it does, yeah. What's it going to be? Carter's getting another coconut drink, right? And he bumps into Abby, daughter of Frank. I'll probably called... It gets confusing because what's the name of... It's Amy is the name of Stuart's ex-wife who got home, not Abby.
Yeah.
They could have just called her Jennifer or something. It would have made life much easier for me. So, yes, Carter is getting a Tiki Night coconut drink, bumps into Abby, daughter of Frank, and he knows that Frank's going to kill him. So he keeps it all very brief. He keeps it all very above board. They clearly have chemistry. But he excuses himself and he leaves. Now, meanwhile, Stuart and Frank are up in Stuart's apartment drinking the expensive wine when Amy, the ex-wife, hammers on the door. And the kid next door had spilled the beans, and I'm thinking presumably for money.
Oh, probably.
Yeah. So Jacob, who rakes in coin, as we heard, he's probably like, hey, Amy, I know a bit of a secret here. I can help you with your dog mystery. Puts out his hand, and next thing you know...
Yes, Jacob told us earlier how much money he's earning from all these different angles that he's got going on. All these side hustles, and Carter says, why am I coaching high school basketball? And I just want to punch him because you're coaching high school basketball, my friend, because it's supposed to be your life's dream, and you're now complaining to some 12-year-old about it.
Yeah. That's another reason the show got cancelled. Yeah. Okay, where were we? Okay, so Frank, right, he has to, because, the hammering's on the door. Yep. And Stu says, Frank, take the dog, go hide in the bathroom, off you go.
Yep.
And so Amy comes in and they have a big argument, but of course, then they end up having a snog, and it's saucy time, because this often happens in movies and TV shows. Lord knows why. So Frank is now stuck in the bathroom while he's hearing Stuart and his soon-to-be ex-wife doing the biz out in the lounge.
For the second time.
And he texts Carter saying, get me out of here, man. You have to help me. I'm trapped in here. And Carter's going, oh, Frank's trapped. I see. I might go back and talk to Abby, which he does. And that's more or less the end of the episode.
Except...
well, Stu gets part custody of Peaches, the racist dog.
This is what I was going to mention. And did you notice that they show the handover of the dog because they're sharing custody?
Yeah, in a car park.
They hand over
neutral...
at this car park. Yeah. But it's the same place where Gil was picking up or dropping off
his daughter.
Do
you reckon that's to
nice
save on location filming? Or
maybe.
Okay, cool.
Maybe. I don't know whether it was done for laughs or for budget or what. But, yeah, there you go.
Very nice. Now that is the end of the series We Are Men.
Did you think it was funny that Gil took his daughter camping in the yard of the apartment complex?
Yes.
Or tiki nights presumably raging around the
corner.
corner.
And there'll be lots of drunken singles doing all that stuff, yeah.
I presume that they didn't bother to tell his ex that this was happening.
Why introduce a complicating factor and potentially an argument with the ex when you can just do that? Good
It was
call.
a nice moment.
I think at this point, Steve, I'll hand over to you for your thoughts on whatever you'd like to speak about, really, in relation to We Are Men.
And the characters weren't really that interesting, I don't think. Carter's a bit of a frustrating one. We've already said how he's kind of complaining about his new high school coaching job. And essentially, he lets his fiancée ride roughshod over him and tell him, boss him around and all this sort of stuff, up to the point of them almost getting married.
Again.
And then when they kind of reconcile, he doesn't say to her, I've got this basketball job, the dream job I've got, and I'm going to do it. And that's, if you want to get back together with me, this is the dealio. No, he lets her again push him. He quits that job because she's basically either he doesn't want to confront her with the whole situation or she makes him. So instead of doing all that hard stuff, he gets to the second wedding and it takes the guys coming up and saying something for him to actually get the courage up to do something about it. It's like, I just find him really frustrating and so wishy-washy. And even, Frank telling him, oh, you can't date my daughter. It's like, why? Don't let Frank put you off. I mean, he's such a hypocrite.
Yeah. Well, don't let Frank put you off. And I agree in principle.
Don't think about the machete.
Yeah. And this is a scene we didn't relate to the listener, is there's a bit of an intimidation scene with a small hatchet and a large machete and a big old knife.
Well, this is Frank's, we haven't talked about this, but this is Frank's advice to Carter. He says, I don't really have a problem in principle with you getting together with my daughter, but I just want you to wait 5 years and go and basically sleep around heaps and then come back and have a relationship with her. Like, what kind of advice is this?
Yes.
It's just ridiculous. Another thing that annoyed me
Frank for you?
This other thing that really annoyed me was, well, it doesn't really annoy me, but it's just lazy, I think, is that we find out Carter's really into basketball and then Abby comes along. Oh, she just happens to be really into basketball.
Yeah, she's in town for the Lakers game.
They were perfectly matched from the get-go, and presumably Frank hadn't been wielding his machete, then they would have already got together.
Yeah, possibly so.
You would
Yeah.
like to see them have less in common and be such an obvious match from the start and let that
Yeah.
just develop a bit more organically or whatever over the course of the series.
Yeah.
Because where does it go from here?
Would he have
15 episodes in, are we still going to be in this situation where they like each other, but Frank's putting...
And that's in danger of taking over the whole show at that point. And then it's just going to become the Frank, Abby, Carter triangle at that point. I can't see... Actually, we missed out a couple of good gags where, they're saying, listen, man, if this all goes south, you're out of the group.
Yeah.
And
We're
Carter
picking Frank.
says, I feel like you guys have talked about this. And,
He's clearly on the, as the newcomer, he's clearly on the outs of the group.
Last in, first out.
That's it. More about why they annoy me. There's a scene where Gil is dropping Maisie off to his ex, and they're talking about the camping trip that's forthcoming, and he says something like...
Have you got your first aid kit?
Have you got the first aid kit? And the reason that he wants the first aid kit is because he's got a blister and he wants a Band-Aid for his blister.
Yeah.
And she just looks appalled, and I'm thinking to myself, dude, if you want to get back together with this woman, you're not actually selling yourself. I mean, don't ask her for the first aid kit. Get yourself a first aid kit or get yourself a Band-Aid.
Yeah, or you do happen to be right outside the convenience store.
Yeah, and it's a similar thing when Carter bursts through the door, ready to confront this guy that's stolen his fiancée off him. And when he discovers that this other guy's shot through and that never came to anything, he says, "Oh, I didn't say anything, but I bumped my elbow on the way in."
Yeah, it's a needless line.
This is just the writer. Maybe he's making them vulnerable. I don't know. But
well, as we heard Rob say, he's taken 4 aspects of himself when he was going through his divorce and afterwards and split them off into these 4 characters and exaggerated them. So maybe one person split into 4. There's not enough to go around, and it's going to be, thinness, and but that's not what you're talking about. But
it just seems to me that a guy who's wanting to attract a woman, is not going to be...
Has to be competent and confident,
Yes.
and then appearing neither.
Yes, exactly.
There you go. That's our middle-aged male perspective right there.
Yep.
So characters annoyed you. That's going to fit in just fine with my comments on stuff that isn't character-based. So I think we're going to cover all the bases. But yeah, sorry.
Well, maybe it's
what
not so much
else
that
have you
they
got?
annoyed me, but there was nothing to...
Endear
I mean,
them?
you can have characters that are flawed. We all love that, but it wasn't balanced by the endearment factor.
And it depends on the flaw, doesn't it?
Yeah, we didn't mention it anywhere, but I did think that particularly Tony and Jerry did fine jobs. What do you think about the acting?
I thought it was all pretty good. I mean, when I first watched it, I thought Chris Smith was a bit lacking, but he's the junior member of the cast,
But he's the main character.
Yeah, the main character. But was it the writing or was it him? And I really don't know.
Yeah, I don't think anyone dropped the ball.
No.
So maybe it's down to the writing, I don't know.
I was highly impressed, though, and I don't know whether this will stay in, but I was highly impressed by the Australian actress, Rebecca Breeds.
I'm getting that again,
because,
you keep mentioning her name like you're her agent
I'm
or something.
trying to
like
raise
that.
her profile, you say. Because that character on paper, there's nothing to her character at all on paper, and yet I always believed that she was a real person.
Yep.
And so she must have done quite a bit with bugger all, I dare say. So that was impressive. But, she was only on screen for a maximum of maybe 3-4 minutes. So, you got to make hay with what little you get.
Yep.
What
Yes,
about
that's-
Stu? He escaped unscathed. So,
Stu?
Yeah.
Oh, the hopeless doctor. Well, I don't know. Thing to like about him, he's a carefree, happy-go-lucky kind of guy, but he's also at the whims of his own passions, which get him into all sorts of trouble, so I don't know.
Yeah.
It was just a... meh.
And he doesn't seem to, do a lot of work. And he's a liar because he tells her when the pregnant client rings up and says, it's go time. And he goes, yeah, I'm at the hospital right now, so just come on by. And he's not. He's broken into his ex's house to steal the dog.
It would have taken him forever to get back down the trail and then in LA traffic get to the hospital. God. I don't know. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, did I get mixed up? No, anyway, it doesn't really matter. That's not the point.
Yep. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so the characters weren't doing it for you necessarily?
No, not really.
All right, cool.
No, that's it. There were some nice little touches and reasonable gags, but nothing laugh out loud funny, I didn't think.
I laughed out loud like twice. But I mean, there's a lot of sitcoms where I don't laugh out loud at all. It doesn't mean I don't like them.
Yeah.
Yes, well, that aside, we have seen, as I've said twice already in this podcast, we've seen a hell of a lot worse than this. There's nothing really reprehensible about it at all. So if you, without having seen it, and we're 10 years down the line, and if you'd read about this sitcom We Are Men that was cancelled after only 2 showings, you'd assume it's full of some, ridiculous or very offensive stuff. And it's not. It's not that it was ridiculous or mega offensive. It's just that it was a little bit très ordinaire. The characters, however, are on an upward arc. They are developing. They're not these, apart from Frank, obviously. So they're flawed people, absolutely, but they're in sort of relatable situations, and they're all trying to deal with a kind of failure. And even in 2 episodes, you can see that Carter, having called them out and bringing a new perspective to the group, hapless as he is, it has changed Gil a little bit, and it's changed Stuart a little bit. And who knows where that was going to go over the next 9 episodes. But what I like about this show, Steve, is, and this is just something that's personal to me, but I love sitcoms where they get out and about. And what struck me about this show is that, unlike almost every other sitcom where they sit around someone's bloody living room or friend style in the coffee shop and they sit around talking, these guys go, let's see, I've got a little list here, and they go from place to place. It's quite remarkable that apart from Stuart, we don't go into anyone's apartment really. So they're in spas, bars, basketball courts, lawyers' offices, hiking trails, Catholic schools, sitting by the pool. They're just going from place to place to place, and it's all beautifully shot location work in California. And it's just a visually very attractive and good looking show. And I found it was quite refreshing and liberating that they're always, or even outside the bloody convenience store. They're always outside, or they're always on the move, and I think this is pretty cool. So that's one thing that I thought was in its favour.
Yes, okay, that's well pointed out, and I agree with that.
So yes, it's not spectacular, but it's directed fine. I've written here I'd give it like a 6.5 out of 10 all day. I don't know, what would your rating be?
Oh yeah, somewhere around the middle. A 5, something like that.
But back into the criticisms, and we're nearly at the end of the show, Steve. I'm not a fan of Carter's voiceover exposition, and I did promise to talk about this, and here we are. So I understand why it's there, right? Like, you have to do that to create these shortcuts and the pace that I was just praising a minute ago. And to get that pace, you have to do these voiceovers that cut through a lot of the bull crap. But it sucks all the momentum out of it, I feel, because they're on the walking trail, they're getting stuff done, and then there'll be some sort of, there's flashbacks, but there's voiceovers, and I think Chris Smith doesn't inject a lot of life into these voiceovers, and I think it's odd because when Jason Lee does it in My Name Is Earl, I think it's great. But, he is a charisma machine. He can make any old rubbish sound pretty cool. And so, again, I think when Earl is doing it, he's describing how he feels and what he's learned, and he's getting to the concept and the heart of the show. Whereas in We Are Men, it really purely is a time-saving thing where Chris is saying, and Stuart did this, And so you just think, well, that's annoying because it breaks the momentum. So you're in a scene, there's stuff happening, and then there'll be a voiceover just to save time, so you can go bang, bang, bang from scene to scene to scene. So I wasn't a fan of that. Let's talk about, before we leave, in terms of the cancellation, why do we think it was cancelled? And I've done some research.
I've got a feeling you're going to say it was either up against some other tough competition, or it was put in some completely dreadful time slot. Are either of those guesses correct?
Well, I don't know. I'm going to run this by you and see what you reckon, Steve. But I thought it was really interesting. So in 2013, one reason is maybe it was up against stiff competition and looked bad by comparison. So the year before, you had something a bit more, Modern Family, for example. Not much had really been done like that before. And that had been around for a year. And so maybe a sitcom about 4 dudes doing this stuff was a bit old hat. I'm not very convinced by that, even though I say it. But if you cut forward to September 13, the very month when this came out, 2 weeks before this debuted, you had new shows Brooklyn Nine-Nine, which is a fast-paced sort of breath of fresh air. The Goldbergs, That went for 10 seasons. Now, I don't know what the Goldbergs is about. I assume it's a family thing, but if it went for 10 seasons, it must be doing all right.
Yep.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine ran for at least 7 or 8 seasons. And Mom, I don't know. I know you know Mom, but that ran for a lot of seasons with Alison Janney.
From West Wing.
Yep. And the great Anna Faris. That was also on CBS. It was on the same bloody network. And those shows all went on forever. And they were...
See, that could be a thing in this one's favour. If you're adjacent to a popular show, then people are more likely to see you because they'll turn over or something. I don't know.
Oh. Well, I think the theory is, and I'm not convinced myself, but it could well be true, is that those shows were a little bit more up to date in terms of, content. And so maybe it was a bit more refreshing and engaging for the viewer. I don't know.
Perhaps this whole idea of 4 blokes behaving badly had well and truly had its day by the time 2013 rolled around.
Exactly. That's my exact next point, actually. So maybe in 2013, this sort of thing was just played out and tired and was so cliche.
It's like Sex and the City, but with men. It's like... Yeah? Well...
And... Yeah.
When would that have had exciting and relevant, like in the 80s or
and then,
early 90s or something like that?
Yeah. And who's the target audience, right?
Yeah.
I don't think women would want to particularly tune into it unless they're Jerry O'Connell fans. He's run around with his shirt off all the time. Oh, no, this is a wild theory, and this is probably complete horse ploppies. But bear with me, Steve.
Yep.
And it was right around this time, dude, that the reality TV show was just absolutely exploding, right? So there's heaps of stuff for dudes to watch. Like you've got... I used to love watching American Pickers, Rick's Restorations, all these amazing, like Porn Stars and all this. All these great reality TV shows were just coming onto the scene. And if a dude who presumably is the target audience for this sitcom, are you going to watch this stuff which a moment ago we suggested could possibly be quite played out? Or are you going to watch all these new...
No, you're going to watch Duck Dynasty or something.
Yeah. Well, fine.
I don't know.
I'd tell you what, though. What was that one with the crocodile, Steve? Swamp People? Oh, man, I used to love a bit of Swamp People. That's a great show. We're getting away from the topic at hand. So, yes, that's a bit of a stretch, right? But it could have been a factor. And another CBS show, Steve, that debuted, I think, 4 days before this or 4 days after it on the very same network was called The Crazy Ones. Now, this sitcom starred Sarah Michelle Gellar, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and Robin Williams, the Robin Williams.
No.
Yeah. It made it through a whole season. It debuted 4 days before.
I've never heard of this before.
No, I've never heard of it. So Robin Williams is Simon Roberts, which is a bit of a bland name, but he's an executive at a Chicago advertising agency who works with his tightly wound daughter and protege, Sydney, played by Sarah Michelle Gellar. And this is Robin Williams' first regular TV series role since Mork and Mindy 31 years earlier. Oh. Holy moly.
It must have... How good would the scripts have to be to attract Robin Williams to do that?
Yeah. And it was... I mean, how long was it before he passed on? It might have only been a year later or something like that, or 2 years later. It's a bit... Wow. And that was on the very same network. So they've obviously thought, right, this is the 2013-14 season. We're going to throw this out, see what sticks. And with all these amazing shows that are on, they just said, all right, well, this one needs to be cut because it's rating the lowest. We're going to keep Mom. We're going to keep whatever the hell it is with Robin Williams and the lawyers. And we're going to keep this, that, and all the rest of it. And no one was watching We Are Men because maybe Brooklyn Nine-Nine's on the other channel at that point, and who knows. But anyway, the point is it did get cancelled, and we've looked at it, and hopefully you, dear listener, have now got an idea what it was all about. And I'm not putting these episodes up on YouTube, so best of luck.
Yes, it would be nice to put some kind of a catchy category name to this type of an episode, but I can't think of anything right now, so...
Failures and flops.
Something niche, something esoteric and hard to find.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll have to work on that.
Yeah, okay. We will. Yeah, but it was nice to knock over a whole series in one episode.
Oh, yeah.
Aren't we great?
Maybe we should start a petition to get the unaired 7 episodes released.
Okay.
How many signatures do you think we're going to get?
Yeah, who do we petition? CBS. Yeah, come on, CBS. Do they have their own streaming network?
I don't know. We'll get Jerry O'Connell's fan base
motivated
and we'll make it happen.
Yeah, all these Star Trek Below Decks fans.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
That had to just be made for streaming, like, with no...
I'd assume so. I think that's CBS as well. I don't know.
Behind that.
I just did a minimum of research on that one, so I did slag it off a bit, but I've never seen it, but I just assume it's not going to be particularly good. I heard it wasn't particularly good. I'm passing on third-hand information.
Yep.
Guilty as charged, my lad. And we're going to return next time. Now, eagle-eared listeners might have realised that I've done 2 in a row, which means you've got the next 2 coming off the production line there, Steve-O. So I'm going to look forward to that. And I do enjoy you bringing stuff to the table. Are they going to be sitcoms, or are they going to be an actor spotlight, or is there anything special coming up?
No, mostly sitcoms, I think.
Okie doke.
There's a few ideas kicking around, so...
Because, pretty soon, just around the corner, it's going to be Halloween time, and then Christmas. So, I love doing the Halloween and Christmas episodes.
If I want to avoid Halloween,
we'll negotiate.
I've got to be on time.
Okay. Well, we've waffled enough, and thank you for your patience, dear listener, and we'll catch you for episode 103 next time.
Yep. See ya. Bye.
Bye. Join us next time on Sitcom Showdown, when we'll be putting another 5-star episode under the microscope. And in the meantime, you can contact us with feedback on Facebook, Twitter @Sitcom Showdown, or by email sitcomshowdown@gmail.com.